I originally wrote and compiled what became Luciferian Witchcraft in between 2003 and 2005, I did not have any idea that it would become a really a instructional methodology, if you will, for initiation. Essentially, it was a personal record of how I approached initiation in a very essentially defining and truly left-hand path way. As it was read by a wider audience, the language of its use and the concepts were very, very considered very extensive at the time. And as what was early the Order of Phosphorus, which was essentially a local Houston coven, if you will, of Luciferian practitioners, I had a very small group that I worked with. So all of these things that I published had been experienced done consistently in more of a ceremonial sense, but also a solitary one, because primarily when I work it's always solitary first, and ceremonial perhaps later. The Order of Phosphorus grew into an international guild and continues to grow today. And for somebody entering the Order of Phosphorus or a Luciferian seeking their own independent self-initiation, I would have to suggest a few different angles to approach it. One thing with the Order of Phosphorus, we're always changing, we're always evolving. We have a structure, and that structure produces results, but we adapt as time moves forward. And I'm not concerned with admitting 5 million people into the Order to have some cluster of discussions and soon arguments with people that need consistent attention. The Order of Phosphorus is a serious left-hand path initiatory guild, and we expect all initiates to either find their grouping locally or be well and productive initiates. But one angle is for anybody entering the Order, interested in the Order of Phosphorus, or Luciferianism as an independent, I would suggest that you pick up as a first book Adversarial Light, Magick the Nephilim, and here's why. The structure of the Bible of the Adversary will be productive for an initiate who has about 5 years experience in ceremonial magic, chaos magic. Those two elements, and perhaps I would definitely say Thelema as well. Any traditional satanic groups would no doubt identify. However, for the initiatory structure, one thing I took for granted was my foundations that I had in the early 90s all the way through, learning different systems and finding what harmonized with my true will. So Magick and the Nephilim is a stripped-down, lens-appropriate view of the demonology and of the Nephilim watchers, the Gibborim, throughout the Levant area. And this type of Enochian, and I say the Book of Enoch in reference to Enochian, is all about left-hand path, being outside of the Christian current, the Judaic current, specifically for Magick and the Nephilim. So the Grimoire talks about the abyss of chaos. It shows different angles that the adversary has manifested in every culture. Originally, the foundation focus, using the adversary in a productive way, that current, to give yourself power and achieve in the world according to your desire. Talks about the lore of angels, demons, those type of things, and the origins. This is very important. We're going to focus on that more in time. Lilith is equally really gotten into in this grimoire, and also the approach that we have for that. Magic and other traditions are discussed. Satanism, Thelema, things like that. Very briefly, enough to kind of give you a grounding. Austin Osman Spare, who also influenced the current. Anton LaVey's Satanism is briefly defined and compared with Luciferianism, not in a this is better or worse thing, but just the differences. Moving on, you have probably the most important foundation work for Luciferianism, just somebody getting into it for the first time. LIBER ALGOL. That is adversarial magic, and it starts with the manifestation of the adversary. Luciferianism goes into what adversarial light as the black flame, what that concept is. And then spirituality, what that is in terms of Luciferianism. Mastery of the mind. Developing those first stages of discipline and will are essential in Luciferianism because that's how you test yourself to make yourself stronger. So it talks about mental control. It gives you some exercises you can do just in everyday life. Physical control, and how you interact with the world defines your tomorrow. It's magic in itself. Yoga in the mind, Luciferian yoga. Very basic things, and then it references that you can go to LIBER HVHI, which has Aramanic yoga later, and then thinking differently from Christians, essential in the foundation, because you're not going to look at the adversary in a dualistic good versus evil way. You're not turning Christian good or Christian evil into your good. You're not you're not defending yourself against them. You're opposing to create anew from pre-Christian sources. Talks about creation and destruction, the psyche, the shadow tongue or barbarous language, using vibration in magic, vibrating your voice, the tone, invocation, and then Therionic sorcery, Luciferian magic, and Utuka sorcery, the differences, DEIFIC masks. All those things are very important in understanding foundations of how you're going to approach Lucifer, the Luciferian current, and how it's different from other manifestations. In Adversarial Light, Magick of the Nephilim, and the Bible of the Adversary, and other Luciferian text, the primary deific mask or archetype of the path is symbolized in a modern sense as Lucifer. Now, as explained in Adversarial Light, there are many deific masks to the power we call Lucifer. Now, Lucifer has many different aspects and many different manifestations throughout history. Before the modern, Lucifer has been, perceived, especially by Christians. One of the significant titles in the initiatory process is the Prince of the Power of the Air, which is a biblical quote. And to explain our context of Prince of the Powers of the Air, let me relate to kind of the balanced sense of the old gods, which are Lucifer manifest, essentially, in pre-Christian terms. The powers of the air represent first the spirit of self-liberation, the spirit of knowledge, of mastery in certain ways. The Christians related the element of the air to be the lowest of the heavens, embodied with dark spirits. Well, we look at dark spirits as ones who are balanced in their perception, in their being. They're balanced. They're neither completely destructive or totally creative. There cannot be one or the other. It's not possible. They're balanced, some more than others. One of the things is, if you look in the Slavic Book of Enoch, which is a source for Adversarial Light, you'll find Satan-El, who's another name for Azazel, and Samael, and Lucifer, or however you want to term it, the adversary. Satan-El is written as Satan-El flying to and fro over the earth, representing that he can go to the heavens or the sky, right? And he can then ascend and manifest on earth. That is balance. Now, the earth represents our daily lives, who we are physically, our personalities, everything we do. And the sky, or the heavens, if you will, represent our spiritual nature, our what we're attaining, and that the spiritual is the direct link to the daemon, or the true will. Now, symbolizing the true will, or the daemon, initially as a Lucifer-type deific mask is ideal, simply because you have the balance, but you also have the dark undercurrent that has been created by the early Christian writers. Remember that demons, as they are visioned in the medieval concept and in the later Renaissance grimoires, demons didn't exist in the way that the Christians view them until the 2nd or 3rd century AD. That's quite a later development. Before that, demons were essentially demi, or the gods of old. Demon is a spirit, and it's not necessarily good or evil. So the demon concept of tormentors and things like that came in later Christianity and the Roman Empire. So the Luciferian spirit represents that. Now, Azazel and the adversary, if you're going to, like, the Book of Enoch, the angels are related as fiery beings, and these type of fiery beings have their origin in the word seraphim, which is actually relating to the Sharapu, the flames of which Nergal manifests, as old as Babylonia. That point is to be considered in the development of the adversarial Lucifer-type image. They're also in the Book of Enoch. They are shape-shifting spiritual beings, and with that they manifest as fire and as human personalities. That is a callback to the Greco-Roman mythology of Proteus, who was able to assume the form of an old man, or as fire, and various animals, just like all of the other old gods. Zeus and all of the Greek gods could take any form they want, and they had animals associated with them. The modern Luciferian looks at those things as spiritual manifestations. So if your form is a wolf in the dream, that's what relates to you, the primal instinct, the noble creature, things like that. And the serpent, Christians would say that's an evil symbol, that's an evil animal. It tempts people, whatever. The serpent is a symbol of healing, knowledge, and the immortality of it shedding its skin. It's also, if you take it in the Kanun aspect, which is like Lotan or Yam, which I'm publishing in a Kanun or Ugaritic grimoire, the serpent is called the crooked or fleeing, twisting serpent, represents the path, the perversion from the perceived moral order of Christianity, which is no moral order at all when you actually look at it in practice. So those are some key points to the symbols of spirits in the Luciferian path. Left-hand path grimoires, Luciferian, satanic ideologies, in any type of publication providing a window into self-initiation should always provide a foundation and an ideology that is not dualistic, not good versus evil, darkness and light, but it should offer a balanced, pre-Christian, outside of the Christian ideology, and a spirituality that is built on your personal experience, your results, and your fantasy in terms of how it produces the works in your life, the results. And it should never be inclusive in the sense that you can't find, you can only find truth here. Truth is what you make it. For all the people who told me early on in my initiation that you wouldn't achieve anything because you're not doing this right or that right or that right, are completely wrong, as I've proved it. Now, Adversarial Light, as I was explaining in LIBER ALGOL, for the Order of Phosphorus or any Black Adept going through the beginning stages of self-initiation, you're going to find foundations. Just foundations in LIBER ALGOL, and it will, once you understand it, it's going to make it very easy to approach the Bible of the Adversary as an ideological, magical approach, and even, if that's your thing, Luciferian witchcraft. I don't go heavy into the Qliphoth because, over the years, my initiation into the Qliphoth has been daunting and very tedious. And I found some other elements that work way better, that you experience the same deific mask and energies without the endless numbers and pointless mysticism. I still enjoy and work with the Qliphoth as a personal challenge, but not as frequently as I used to. I have some other areas that I'm going to unveil that are going to help, I think, initiates much more. LIBER ALGOL features, provides concepts into sigils, how to use sigils, and what makes a sigil, how to empower it. It talks about atheistic workings, gives a pragmatic approach for memory, working with Belial. And then there's a theistic working, which is primal sorcery. That's where you enter the circle, or you start doing your ritual working. You're invoking, and you put yourself into the state of mind, as Anton LaVey instructed, that you totally fulfill that psychodrama, that fantasy, because that relates to something that has significance in your subconscious. The trick is using it and activating it for manifestation in the physical world, which this outlines that process if you utilize it. It talks about invocation, Luciferian magic. Invoking methods are important because I know a lot of people are very into structure. When they first get into magic, they're like, what do I do in this step and this step? Well, this provides that in a very basic way. And this whole grimoire was working for me because I'm using the Watchers, working with the Watchers, invoking, to produce real-world results in not only a writing aspect and setting down the basics, which I've never been good with, just laying down foundations for people before, but doing it in a way that's going to be productive for so many more people, thus illuminating the black flame. It provides objectives. How do you write an objective? How do you determine an objective? The purpose of conducting it. And using that connectivity between the body, mind, and spirit, how important that is. The announcement is the ritual intent. And there's a statement like, suggestion, I will be reborn in the Luciferian current. Then you're baptizing yourself. You're initiating that within. Talks about your environment. The variance is there. The Nephilim and the Watchers, as described in Adversarial Light, is a very useful deific mask or group of symbolism within the Luciferian current. This type of symbolism is very meaningful for any new Order of Phosphorus adept, or someone who's perhaps more independent, and not needing or requiring or desiring a kind of group or correspondence setting. The Nephilim, in all cases, are derived from the earlier Greek tales of the Titans, giants, and also the intermixing of the gods with humanity. That's where we find the various interactions that are almost identical to the Enoch, the various Enoch versions that have been found. Another interesting tale is called the Book of Giants, which is a Manichaean text, and it mentions Gilgamesh and essentially Humwawa or Humbala, who is a Hittite god, also appearing as a demon in the Mesopotamian pantheon. Now, the significance of Gilgamesh as a giant, or a Nephilim, is that he is the offspring of half-divine offspring. But historically accurate, Gilgamesh was actually one of the first kings of Uruk in what would be Sumeria. And he was a conquering king before Sargon I. What we find is that he's later deified, and he ends up in the Gilgamesh tales, and he's an underworld god in Mascom Hull. Now, like Heracles and Melkart, the conquering semi-divine man is someone who goes forth on his seeking his true will and follows what the Greeks call pathos, which is something that I'm very in tune with, in that it's the daemon that instills a drive that you cannot ignore, that you have to, it's a sense of longing. That's what pathos is. And so Gilgamesh, too, had that sense of longing, just as Alexander the Great and other people who follow their true will. Now, Gilgamesh is significant in that he represents the balance of the divine, or the spiritual, and the physical, or the worldly. And upon his death, his daemon, which is still Gilgamesh, interestingly enough, is deified, and is written about as being an underworld god, along with in the court of Ereshkigal and Nergal. Now, the cult of the Nephilim, as in Adversarial Light, you're going to see in a new book that I'm to publish on Canaan sorcery and Ugaritic pantheons. You'll find the Rephaim, who are essentially the Nephilim. These were a class of what are called strong men giants. They probably weren't giants. They're probably a few inches taller than some of the other, like Israelites, who was a different tribe. And maybe through nutrition, their meat diet, who knows what it was, made them larger than others. These men were kings, and they were deified, and offerings were made every year, like family, a cult of the family. So the Rephaim are described as riding chariots, being warriors, horses, etc. That's what the Nephilim is in a Luciferian context, someone who is a conquering individual, someone who conquers what they wish to achieve in life, and that's your obstacles, your challenges, all those things, your personality defects, all those things. So in the cult of the Nephilim, I use it not in the Ugaritic context, but in the context of the Book of Enoch. Now keep in mind, the Book of Enoch is a pretty late Christian text, written around the time of 165 BC. There are variants to that version, but that's around the time of the Seleucids, or the Hellenistic kings in that area. They brought those titans and those gods, which the Israelites, or the ones in Jerusalem, who weren't into Hellenism, rejected and called demonic. So the cult of the Nephilim is a lens, if you will, of initiation. And your essential goal is to produce a spirit of darkness within yourself, the rebel spirit, bearing the black flame, the gift of Azazel and Shemyaza, through initiation. Initiation is life, the things you do in life, mixed and balanced as a tool with your ritual workings, your initiatory workings. And you're going to produce from spirit and flesh that balance. I go into necromancy a little bit, but it's not an essential avenue for anyone seeking that initiation. One of the most important rites for the daemon, or true will in Adversarial Light, is the rite of the seraphim, the genius of the luminous fire. Dealing with the watchtowers, all the symbolism of Enoch, which can be used in a Luciferian and non-Judeo-Christian way. Calling the watchers is a significant point in that you're, as you call these powers and you summon them within the circle, you're empowering your own being with the meaning of that specific watcher. So in that union, you're bringing that knowledge of spirit into the earth. Where it becomes interesting is, okay, if you invoke a watcher, say for, what would be a good example, Terrell. Say you invoke Terrell, one of the leaders of the fallen ones. If you take the sigil, which is composed from a later grimoire appearance of Terrell, but also the Aramaic letters in his name, then he represents rock or Jupiter, a foundation. So how does that work? You invoke Terrell to establish a compelled order in your life. So, you might be out of college or something and you want an apartment, a home. You're going to work towards that. You're going to do invocations towards that. Now, what that will do is really stimulate your subconscious to finding the responsible, proper ways of doing that. And you're going to consciously visualize Terrell, but go and achieve the goal that you wish. That's a great way. Now, UCL, strength as God, fallen angel, slaughter and war, taught slaughter, killing, stuff like that. That's not about physical killing unless you're going to war, if you're in the military. But it's represented as overcoming challenges. So you say you have an enemy and you're trying to achieve a goal and they're in your way. Well, you don't sit there and curse them. You use your head and your mind to outsmart them and outcalculate them. That's where the watchers really manifest. For the more spiritual things, Sariel, the moon watcher, teach you the course of the moon. That represents the water. Our bodies are 72 to 78% water. That's where that comes in. You're learning your patterns of emotional behavior and how you can shape that to your benefit. The primal rites within LIBER ALGOL in Adversarial Light, Magick of the Nephilim, provide very basic, stripped down, ritualistic workings which will allow you to self-initiate yourself into the Luciferian or adversarial current. This grimoire is really about providing foundations and an entry into working with the watchers and the symbolism of becoming one of the Nephilim, which is the union of the sky or the heavens being the watchers, spiritual beings, spiritual deific mask, with the earth being the daughters of Cain, and that union creates that balance thus connecting you in a spiritual way, in a type of mastery of your world around you. There's descriptions about the different types of Luciferian magic, and they're categorized really towards the aims that you wish to achieve. Once you grow into a Black Adept, being able to work with a lot of different avenues in magic, you'll be able to combine them and really to use them to your advantage on a dual level. And what I mean by that is you'll do a working for a job promotion, but it's not just a temporary low magic fix of sorcery. It's actually you're developing traits within yourself that you can use in the world around you to make you better, to better achieve your goals. Because it's always about those type of things. It's how do you improve? How do you grow stronger, more powerful? There's a basic Luciferian prayer. I call it a Luciferian prayer. It's basically a hymn or an invocation. Really all about the self in the sense of a prayer to the angel of light. Instead of summoning a devil in a Christian way, you're doing things like, I invoke thee, God within myself, being your daemon, that I may seek my own redemption. Your own redemption means that you start thinking for yourself now before you act, and not feeling guilty for the choices you make if you think things through. And it goes on that I may know the secrets within this world, and that's the paths to inner and outer power. That I raise myself to be wise through experience and test, so I shall be a bringer of light. That is knowledge and shaping your world how you see fit. I offer only prayers to my potential and possible greatness. That's the daemon. Possible greatness is always growing and expanding, so you never achieve that one thing. It's always constant and constantly, like the coiling dragon serpent, moving, changing. That the angel and daemon within me is strengthened. Early on we have to understand angel and daemon. It kind of is you have to get past the Christian concepts, so we have some avenues to really get past those through some simple workings within Adversarial Light. And it goes on to see to really direct yourself and initiate yourself to be reborn in your own image, if you will. And then there's the ritual of embodiment of darkness, which is invocation of the Leviathan, the biblical enemy Leviathan, who is also a much older god, which is going to be in a future grimoire. This is the initiator, the circle itself, your potential, your primordial foundation. Very important. Basic ritual castings, casting the circle of the dragon. An important exercise in ceremonial magic, and where you're focusing on elements, directions, and powers. That will provide you with meaning and really a different level of magical experience. As you grow adept, you will not be able to will not require to do those. I do them every so often to maintain that point of discipline. The lesser encircling rite of the Luciferians about, in some ways, illuminating the chakras. There's a rite that is for the daughters of Lilith, or for any male who wishes to connect with the dark goddess. Not in some necessarily I want to be a cross-gender or anything like that. It has nothing to do with sexuality per se. It has to do with the traits of the deific mask. And Lilith has many traits that are appealing and purposeful within males and females in different ways. That invocation is a very dark invocation because you're calling the powers of devouring and primordial darkness. The rituals of Canaanite sorcery from the early Luciferian witchcraft are presented in a more simplistic way. The oath of the devil is to first get away from the medieval image of the devil and by invoking it within and then understanding it, conjuration of Cain. And I use the Galilean version of the Lord's Prayer, the early 2nd, 3rd century prayers by the Christians, only because it's invoking and banishing those type of false fishermen spirits, if you will, of the Galileans. The invocation of Cain. That's your traditional sabbatic ritual of mastery in the earth, understanding nature. The ritual of Belial, workings towards mastery of the earth, that's really the next step for anyone. And then following up with a very, I would say powerful in many ways, invocation of Samael, the dark angel of 12 wings, and you're utilizing the Kabbalistic symbolism of Samael to really push yourself to the next level. One consideration with the adversary and the spirits of darkness, as shown in Adversarial Light and Luciferian doctrines, is that for instance, in the Book of Enoch, the Watchers and the Nephilim, the fallen angels, are related to something called a place of darkness, where they're supposedly placed for a while. This place of darkness, in the translation, means place of darkness, but also there's an associated word in another translation called Makanza Aulelo, which is Ethiopic, and it means a place of storm. So we see darkness and storm are totally connected and interchangeable. That's why you see Typhon Seth being related to storms and darkness, Apep, the waters, chaos waters. The aspects of storm are those of change, of maintaining a strength within yourself and moving forward with it. As you work with Adversarial Light, like I said, either in the Order of Phosphorus or not, you should utilize a few texts that are published to really help your process. One is, of course, the Bible of the Adversary, specifically page 148 of the hardcover edition, Mastery of the Earth, Teachings of Belial, Reflections of Lilith. Lilith fits into the Watcher's myth, Enoch, because the wives of the Watchers who beget the giants are described in text as becoming sirens or essentially Liliths, those vampiric spirits. So Lilith, of course, is one half of the adversary, and the complementary, the fire, with Samael or Azazel as the motivator. So, in the Mastery of the Earth section in the Bible of the Adversary, number one, appearance is important, reactions vary. Lucifer is the god of self-realization, enemies can be useful. These type of things, you apply those with the magic you're practicing towards your goals, and I highly suggest that you keep documentation of it and see how well it works for you, because if you apply both, you're going to have amazing results. The goddess of the world, Lilith, talks about a different angle from it, not just for women, for men also, in that woman is the most powerful figure. Most guys will do anything a pretty woman will ask them within reason, and that's simply by how people appear. If you appear threatening, you're going to get a lot less, depending on your goals. The goddess displays the essence of her power in her presence. That's eyes, that's posture, that's speaking. Think of your job or whatever you're going for. These type of things are integral in initiation. Now, in the Goetia of Shadows, there's a couple sections that will aid your work with Adversarial Light also. Page 17 of the softcover, definition of Luciferian magic. Very important because it goes through the concept of Lucifer from like the Greek Hellenic period on, deific mask, and also Luna Lucifer, Hecate, and how they're all associated. And then the ritual structure itself. The sigil of Lucifer and Nephilim in the Goetia of Shadows features Azazel, and Samael encircling the sigil of Lucifer. And that's a very important process in adversarial light, is that you've got to know how to work with the different deific masks of Lucifer. And I put a very special tool at the bottom of that, which I'm not sure if people have picked up on yet. But I've got the planets, Venus, Mars, Sun, all that. And I have associations of Lucifer, his different deific mass manifestations. Venus is Esophoros, Phosphorus, also Hesperus, Vesper, Noctifer, Nightbringer, Artemis, Hecate, Phosphorus. Yes, Hecate is a manifestation of Lucifer. They're kind of one and the same. She's the bringer, the carrier of the torch, the initiator. Also, Ishtar of Arbella, a warrior goddess, but also one of love. Mars, you have Nergal, Samael, Ares, Heracles, Venithraga, god of war and victory. Indra, Tarovi, Hephaestus, Azazel. The sun, you have Helios, Apollyon, of course, another manifestation of Lucifer. Jupiter, you have Zeus, Nikephoros, the god of victory. That's Lucifer in the sense of the willer, the one who willed order. The national deity of, or a special deity of Antiochus IV, the one that gave birth to the Maccabee revolts indirectly. Then you have Poseidon, Saturn, you have Tiamat, all those things. Now Tiamat's not Lucifer, of course, but she's directly related in that she is the cosmic creator, the one who instills life, the spark into man. And also she appears as Ishtar of Arbella, who's Venus, the war goddess, later on in Babylonia. You have Mercury, Ningishzida, Nabu, the god of destinies, Apollyon. So using all of these tools and opening your mind to different deific masks, you're going to really bring yourself to a different place than most anti-Christian individuals, in that you're going to have knowledge, and having that knowledge and knowing how to use it and using it are very important steps in any initiatory process. So from a year from now, you're not saying moving on to something else. People move on to things because they don't find what they want. When you find what you want and you have this as a foundation, if you use it, you're going to be able to move on to anything and learn, but still have this foundation of success. Thanks for watching the video.